Okay, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about again today, Samo?
Well, this is again, but even though you're not going to see the original because we had so many technical difficulties, as you've seen over the last couple months of my AT&T difficulties. But we have Xfinity now, but I have us hardwired in to also guarantee success today. We will redo what we were doing on Wednesday and hopefully actually be a little more streamlined. Although watching it, the material was great, the tech was horrible.
Yeah,
So we're trying it again, and we are talking about uh kind of the environment around the Swifty Kelsey information overload that we're getting, but also we're going to transition that into the gender gap in politics right now.
hmm
And I do have a silver lining on that, but then it gets worse on the other side of it. So we're going to talk a little bit of uh sex differences in politics and how we view things and why we're getting the gap, but also just the modern uh Gen Z, realistically, because the Zoomers are still kind of too young. Gen Z, uh and their mentality going forward, and how it's one of the reasons why we keep putting the stick between the bicycle wheel right now. And it's not us, we're not boomers, we're not just get off my lawn. This is like,
hmm
quit shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was on my walk this afternoon. I was listening to the latest Chris Williamson Modern Wisdom podcast with Eric Weinstein, and the title is something like "Why Nothing Makes Any Sense." And so I'm going to try not to go off on too much, but we do try and bring the broader view onto the specific things we talk about. And this is an element of that. Of what we're going to talk about is an element of why nothing makes any sense, because we've all lost our collective minds.
Yeah, and we're gonna say some problematic things because unfortunately there are sex differences between men and women,
Yeah.
especially in how we think. Oh, I forgot to put Righteous Mind up there. Not Righteous Mind. Yeah, Righteous Mind, which is Jonathan Haidt's Why Politics and Religion Divide Us. Uh,
Also, go back and watch what we did yesterday, which was our Wheel of Time episode where we canceled ourselves like 3 or 4 different times, talking about cross-sex mind reading and sex differences between things, because there was a lot of that in those chapters. Um, but let's get into it. You want to start with the clip that got my brain going on this?
yes, it's a good clip. We had thought about cutting the clip out and just summarizing it, but I think it's a good clip. It
Yeah,
the clip is Steve Deese, right? Steve
Dace.
Dace, uh, talking about the Taylor Swift situation. And if anybody follows our episodes, everybody knows I disagree with him a lot,
hmm
but I 100% agree with him here, and I have some follow-up thoughts on it too.
Yeah.
Did I make it to where you can share? Yeah.
I sent you the clip so that it would,
Oh, that's right.
because it's always funky when I play it on my end. And this is set up. They're reacting to a lengthy clip that they played of a Daily Wire roundtable where Candace Owens was just going off on a rant about how awful Taylor Swift is. You don't have sound, goofball.
I turned that on earlier. I thought it was supposed to stay on. Sorry,
I thought it
guys.
was too. Okay, Boomer. Let's try that again.
All right.
You just backed it way up to the beginning of the clip.
What's the timestamp?
It was like 35 something.
Okay, let me just re-click your link.
Okay, Boomer. Third time's a charm.
So much for being more streamlined, right?
Uh-huh. You're still better at this stuff than I am.
Okay. Are we sharing screen still?
Nope. There we go.
Let me make sure this would sound. Okay, it did stay this time. Okay. So now we should be good, everyone.
an effort clearly on the right to keep resurrecting this topic, to keep resurrecting Taylor Swift as some form of platform to respond to. And I'm trying to figure out why. All right. So this isn't about her. This is about us. It may be. I mean, I remember when Dan Quayle took on Murphy Brown. You know, Jordan and Aaron are probably too young to remember that. Todd, you remember that, right? When Murphy Brown was the single mom, and Dan
Yeah.
Quayle said, "Hey, those aren't family values. Kids want to be born to, to a mom and a dad. You know, you're denying them that." That was 30 years ago. That was a massive controversy, well over 30 years ago, actually. And so there are moments, you know, when Trump went after Colin Kaepernick, that was clearly a moment where what was happening in the pop culture zeitgeist was worth it for us to address politically and use as a means by which to brand and defeat the other side. All right. So there's clearly those kinds of moments. But this one is getting resurrected. We're on like week 4 now of major righty blue checkmark angst where Taylor Swift is concerned. So.
All right. So the week 5 now, because that was last Friday's episode. So, and it's still going. And with that setup, then the question he poses to his panel there is
did I
this
stop before
yeah.
Okay.
Well, but the
Go ahead.
question is simple. Is this a culture war worth fighting? Because he gave the 2 previous examples of times the right has tried to fight these kinds of culture wars. Is this a culture war worth fighting? And part 2, what would victory in that culture war even look like?
Yeah, so I agree with him that the Kaepernick one was a fight worth having, because we've talked ad nauseum about the reason Cap did what he did and the machine behind it. The Nike machine behind, because people forget that Kaepernick was paid the $100 million Nike contract to do the change billboards before he ever kneeled. And those came out 5 years later. This was something set in the works a long time ago. So yes, that was a fight worth having, especially because it exposed kind of clunkily and clumsily exposed the woke ideology behind it. But the Swifty thing, no, it is not a fight worth having, because it's a fight actually being generated from the people on the other side. And people like Candace Owens are so reactionary to this that they're playing right into the hand of the person starting the fight.
Well, and the preamble to his question there was, there is clearly an effort on the right to keep resurrecting this why. Well, the why to me is pretty obvious. It's a grift. It is great clickbait.
Yeah, and I hate the word effort there, because the effort is on the left. The reaction is on the right. And we go back to rules for radicals. The reaction is the point. The problem with Candace Owens is she's a broken clock. She's right every once in a while, but she just doesn't think things through. She doesn't have the chops to be a true critical thinker like someone like Steve Deese or Prager or Douglas Murray, or, you know, all of these other people, Jordan Peterson. Let me think of somebody from the left, James Lindsay. You know, all of these people that can critically think. She's not. She is a prop. She is, to me, and this is something I didn't say on Wednesday, but I thought about later. She's the Ibram X. Kendi of the Conservative Party. As Glenn Loury describes him, I'm going to describe her. She's an empty suit.
Yeah, that's funny, since one of her more recent uh, viral moments was this documentary she did on BLM Inc. For the Daily Wire. So to call her the Ibram X. Kendi of the right is sadly hilariously accurate.
Yeah, I bet you if she wrote a book, it'd be just as good as How to Be an Anti-Racist. It would. It'd be How to Be a Black Conservative, and it would be some retardedness
And
of.
it would be a great amount of sophistry of this sounds convincing to the people who want to be convinced by it,
Yeah, and
which is
let me
what
cite this
anti-racist is.
60-year-old news article that supports me. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's what it would be.
Well, and the yes and no though to Dace's question is yes, it's a culture war fight worth having, but no, because we're not going to fight the fight we actually should fight, right?
Well,
It's as an analogy, uh yes, intervening in Vietnam was a worthy mission in the abstract. The way it was fought was horrifically dumb and led to ultimate failure and futility. The way this culture war is going to be fought is the way the Candace Owens is, and then whoever is on the left feeding this so that because several weeks ago you brought up a couple of articles from mainstream sources, more lefty sources about this, and it was clear they were trying to make it a thing to use as a cudgel to belittle, demean, and frankly embarrass the right because of certain actors who were saying things that were just clearly dumb. Okay, and then after the fact, after the Super Bowl, proved to be silly.
well, this is where I actually would say no and then yes. You said yes and then no. No, that this is not a fight we should be having. And but it's a fight that is actually play. The problem is we're pumping up her base is the problem. The people like Candace out there that are really fighting this, and actually that's why I think the news, the media, which is, I mean, what is the latest 93% left leaning? The media is pushing the story, even though it's a non not thing. You know, if you we brought up Matt Walsh and all these other people that are like, yeah, Taylor's like the 50th worst thing ever in pop right now. We got Cardi B, we got Nicki Minaj, we got
Mm-hmm.
Sam Hunt. What's the black country slash rapper guy that does all
Oh,
the.
the guy that did the lap dance on the devil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head because I don't listen to that shit. But it's she's like the 50th worst one, but it's being pushed and being pushed and being pushed, and then the reaction is pumping up her base. So if she says, I support Biden in this next election, okay, that's just another celebrity giving an endorsement. Freaking Robert De Niro for Hillary Clinton at the Grammy Awards. You know, it didn't work because there's a good point that celebrity endorsements actually have typically a greater negative effect than they do a positive effect. And but she has a base of people, girls between 18 and 35 years old that are Swifties for life. They're like the people who still go to the Backstreet Boys concerts. You know, they are in. You know, it's all the ladies that will still go see Motley Crue. They they are in love.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in love, you do stupid things without thinking it through. And if we don't pump up that base, they're not voters. But if we pump them up, they are
Mm-hmm.
voters. And so that's why I say no, it's not a fight worth having, but it is a fight worth having. Yes, it's a fight worth having within the conservative movement to stop these voices that keep reacting to it.
Mm-hmm. And then where I say yes and no is the fight should be about um the cultural issue at hand, which is um feminine versus masculine, gender roles, relationships, and the big ugly mess that is that in modern day. And from the political point, you bring up the good point of the especially all these hardcore Trumpers. You do realize his area of weakness is the, you know, 18 to 40 something suburban woman. And that's your point, is those are the Swifties and you're just making them more agitated. Why? My bigger concern actually is the under 18. It's the teens and the tweens whose minds are still developing, and Swift is, filling their brains with mush. And what the right should be doing, rather than being overly critical, which, you know, as Height and Peterson have talked about, that's kind of just part of the way our brains work. And that's something I've actively tried to work on. Like when I coach, I know I'm overly critical and I make a point to, I'm going to say something positive before I, give the critique. But instead of just critiquing it, it should be, hey, good for you kids. Here's a couple of, they're both like 33, 34, and they've been dating in the adult world for over a decade. And Swift, especially, given her album history, all of her relationships have been awful by her own admission. They've all been toxic, awful, shallow, etc. And now you have two young adults who realize, you know what? That's not the way we should be doing things. Now we theoretically, from the outside looking in, it looks like we have finally found a genuine, mature relationship worth pursuing. So good for you. That should be the culture war, is we should be pointing that out and saying, hey, good for you two. This is the way it should be. This is what people should aspire to. And from the critique side is, hey, use that as an example for your own life, to not spend a decade and a half running through shallow, ugly relationships that leave you bitter and empty.
I just thought about it while you were doing your little monologue there, but I wish I would have had this ready. It was a video that a young lady posted to either TikTok or Instagram Reels, where she's talking about how she went on a date with a traditional manly man, and she was super liberal, and she was like, but this was really nice. I can't believe how great this was. And I wish I would have had that ready, but everything that came up in my quick search was woman complaining about where the manly men at, but refuses to date a conservative. And so that kind of gets us to our next topic, which is the divide amongst women and men. And so let's keep it on Taylor or Swift and Kelsey. She's finally dating kind of a manlier man. She's mostly dated other artists and executives in the music industry. She's basically been dating the sneaky fuckers. The ones that dress up like they agree with you on everything, but they're empty suits themselves. They have nothing to offer you. And she finally has found a guy who has something to offer. We can have our little miniature opinions about him all day long, but he is a better tight end than I will ever be in the National Football League. He's a better tight end than almost every tight end that's ever played. The only names I can think of from our generation that you could put up there is Antonio Gates, Anthony Gonzalez.
I saw a quote from Gronk recently where Gronk has said he's better than me. Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, so I mean, there's very few names you can put on that list. He's at least top 10 ever to play that position.
Yeah.
And she's top 10 ever to be a pop star, if you really look at her numbers.
As far as reach and numbers and all that. Especially recently, where the past couple of decades, it's, we've talked in some of our pop culture episodes, and other people have talked way more about this, the death of the movie star. Well, I would say even before the death of the movie star was the death of the pop star. That there hasn't been that single individual. Every once in a while, someone like a Beyonce will come along and just monopolize the charts and the pop culture conversation for a while. But if you look back, there used to be a dozen Beyoncés or Taylor Swifts. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, there were dozen or dozens of them.
Yeah, well, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, it's probably going to be a Taylor Swift Super Bowl halftime because of all this conspiracy." Blah 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 blah. The reality is, the NFL could not afford her.
Yeah.
She sold out Energy Stadium 6 nights in a row when she was here.
I mean,
The
Usher was
Houston
huge in
Texans
the
cannot
aughts. I mean, come
sell
on.
out 6 games in a year. It's she sells out stadiums more than the team that
Yeah.
plays in that
Yeah.
stadium. So
Yeah.
she's probably the biggest pop star since Michael Jackson. You brought up Beyonce. Beyonce's
hmm
close,
hmm
but she is probably the biggest pop star since Michael Jackson.
Yeah. And that is my point about, yes, that the culture war is worth fighting, but that's why it should be fought to convince those people, you know, the young women who are, you know, you brought up the divide of this is where you are going, but one of the things that Dace clip made me think of when I was driving and listening to it was you know, it popped into my head of this growing divide of how Gen Z males, boys are becoming more based, but girls are becoming more woke. That's a problem when you already have a serious gender dynamic and relationship mess that we have talked about before.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring in the visuals here. So if you're just listening, this is Changing America. The first article I'm bringing up here is politics are increasingly a dating deal breaker, especially for women, which
Mm-hmm.
is a big problem
And
because
this is from The Hill, which tends to be more centrist, slightly left. They used to
Mhm.
be more left, but I would call them they lean a little bit left.
Yeah, it is slightly left, and they have Robbie, who's libertarian, and Brianna as their kind of main voices,
Mm-hmm.
and she's actually very progressive. She's not super woke, but she is progressive left.
Yeah.
She's the kind of progressive that I think I could have a conversation with.
Yeah.
But she is quite a bit left even from myself. But Robbie is a libertarian, and he probably is a little bit too laissez-faire for me. So it's a pretty good balance. Uh, Now, this article, I think this is the right one. Yeah, 86% think it has grown more difficult to date someone who supports the opposing political party in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
86%.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So almost everybody in the dating market has trouble dating somebody in a different political leaning. Well, look at the leaning.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the gap there?
Yeah.
That's huge. So there's a big chunk of people, 86% of that delta will not touch each other.
Yeah. Almost 20% there difference between men and women ages 18 to 29 of how they identify politically. You know, again, in a dating market that's already kind of a mess, not kind of,
So
is a mess.
what's Gen Z about 40 million Americans?
Oh, I
Somewhere around
can't
there?
remember,
Yeah,
but
somewhere
it's
somewhere
something like
somewhere
that.
between 30 and 50. Somewhere between 30 and 50 million Americans is Gen Z. So
And now,
we'll go on the low end. We'll get the smallest number. So this is the smallest number that you're going to get on this calculation. 30 million people, where 25% of them, so one fourth, 7 million of them will only date other conservatives, and 45.
did now in one of these, didn't you have a hard number of uh women who say they will absolutely not date someone of the opposite party, and it is more pronounced on the left. Um,
Yeah, it's right. It's in
yeah, here you go. It's
previous
right
article
there.
come
It
up right
is.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
35% of women will not date anybody of the opposite party. So of 30
Wh-
million, cut it in half,
While yeah,
15.
while more than half of men said they would date someone with different views, because we're different and we look for different things, mostly
Mhm.
boobies. Just 35% of women said the same thing. So only 35% would be open to dating someone with different political views. This jumps back to something we talked about a while ago when we talked about oh, what's the fancy term for women dating across and up?
Hypergamy.
Hypergamy, and how we are exceptions to that and why that is. And in that conversation, one of the things I pointed out is that it's not similarity in political views that you're looking for. It is similar values. And the problem with the hyper partisan nature of our current politics is that it is partisan. It is no longer value based. It is team jersey based. It is whose side is going to win. And
So
we don't
so
even talk about values
so
anymore.
add this to the list of dating issues. So you just brought up hypergamy.
Mm-hmm.
So income across and above. Uh college education across and above, height across and above, all of these things that women do in the dating market. Again, you said men boobies, right? The but also men, does she give me the signs and the senses that she wants to be a mother someday? That is in there. You know, that's why oh, I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't give blowjobs, and where are all the good men at? And the answer is they're sitting at home with a home cooked meal getting a blowjob. You know, it's in a clean house with a home cooked meal getting a blowjob. That's the answer to that.
And we're canceled again.
Yeah, and we're canceled again. But I mean, that's the meme. But at the same time, women and men are looking for different things when they're out,
Yeah.
and they're looking for something. And yes, it is awesome that you have a boss ass career and all these things. But in the dating market, that doesn't really help you. Not with men you want to date.
Mm-hmm.
That helps you with, the little sneaky fuckers out there that are just trying to get laid and,
Yep.
lick your boots. But how happy are you going to be with that guy for a little, for how long? Right. So yes, that's boss. But at the same time, you offer things to your workplace and you offer things in the dating market. Guys go to work and they offer a part of them that they would never bring if they're smart to the date. They would bring intimacy and flowers and,
Effort. They would
effort
bring
and all these
effort.
things to the date that, they're going to go in and they're going to bring power and superiority and competence and all of these things to the workplace. On the same side, the women, you bring in that power, that competence, that everything to the workplace, but come with a maternal side to the dating market, and you will find the
Mm-hmm.
man you want.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this gap here. We're talking half of the dating market won't touch each other. And then add all of those other things to it on the women's side. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking 90% of women won't touch. What is that? They're at 25% liberal for men, 75% of all men. That's this is a recipe for unhappiness.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what to bring back your point, we should be celebrating the Kelsey Swifties because they are opposite sides of the political spectrum. Listen to Kelsey talk on
Yeah.
his podcast. He's a normal dude. He's
Mm-hmm.
probably right there in that 75%. He might but not be a super conservative, but he's at least
Yeah.
a moderate,
Yeah.
and don't bring up Pfizer because that, you turned down $20
Exactly.
million for a commercial and then
Exactly.
talk about it. But
Exactly. But
I,
but but again, that's where the values versus politics comes in, because that is one of the reasons the right won't let this go, is because, ooh, we've got a target there. Well, hold on. You're just looking at the politics. Have you listened to the guy talk? Have you listened to him, just uh shooting the feces with his brother on their podcast? He's a normal dude. Okay, he is, he's way on the tail of the bell curve when it comes to physical ability, but he's kind of right in the middle when it comes to attitude.
Mhm.
um I just had a thought there. Oh. Th-
Yeah, yeah. Give your thought, and then I'll give you the silver lining
and
to the cloud here.
this is where it kind of ties back to the Swifty part of it is because, you know, this is something I said and I got funny looks for 25 years ago in a philosophy class as an undergrad was where the battle of the sexes went wrong is when whoever came up with the term called it a battle of the sexes, and it became a versus rather than a. And this came from I've referenced this before, and I keep meaning to find the textbook. It's around here somewhere. It's a collection of philosophy essays, and this was the first time I was exposed to the really weird gender stuff that has become the norm now, because this philosopher was basically arguing in this essay that there are an infinite number of genders because, I kid you not, everyone's genitalia is unique, is uniquely shaped and sized. Therefore, there are as many genders as there are people. And my point in the class was this seems like going way out of your way to solve a problem that is very simple to solve, which is why not just say, hey, we're different and complementary? Why do we have to have a battle? Why does there have to be a winner? Why does, to the Swifty part of the problem people on the right have with her, and rightly so, they're just going about it wrong, is, her, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar songs. And the problem is, for most women, most of the time, you're not going to be happy being masculine.
Well, and this is the thing I think a lot of people aren't getting. Now, this could all fall apart, and it's probably gonna, 9 times out of 10, this is gonna be another celebrity relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she has "Woman Hear Me Roar" in her songs, and someone like Kelsey, who's a pretty manly man in his trade and in his talk in a lot of ways, he says, "Yeah, but I'm a man,
Mm-hmm.
not one of these fuck boys you've been playing around with.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're with a real man."
He's
And
not going to be intimidated by that.
yeah, and that's sexy as hell. You know, when I'm talking to a woman and they show me they can be tough as hell. I like tough women, but then they show me it's actually better when they're tough as hell, but then they show me some vulnerability, some female, essence, and then it's like, "Oh, she trusted me with that." That's a huge thing. And yeah, I like successful women, but I like successful women who are able to trust the person they're with enough to be a woman. And that's the difference. I'll quote myself here. Uh, to your point, we confuse sexual conflict with a power struggle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sexual conflict is there and it's in every relationship, but it's not about power. It's about finding, everything hits and then you kind of fit in to the right. The puzzle pieces come together. And sometimes that means sacrificing something. Sometimes that means being more of what you are. And if you're really in tune with your partner, that works out. And hopefully they are. I actually hope for the best of them because I want the conspiracy theorists to be wrong on this
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, just because the initial thing was wrong doesn't mean there's the NFL taking advantage of it, Pfizer taking advantage of it, the Democratic Party taking advantage of it,
Mm-hmm.
all of these other forces that are at play. But that happens to all of us in all of our lives. And if we can only wish to be important enough that it shows on a big scale, right? They're important enough that it shows. I don't believe the whole, well, they had this person in the booth, and so they're all about worshiping Satan and all of this stuff. That you can keep that talking point on the conservative side. I'll believe it when I see it, but can I
But
get to the
there,
silver lining?
yes,
Yes.
let's move on to the silver lining because there
Okay.
is more to this.
Yeah, I picked this graph for a reason because this is the one that's making the rounds on the interwebs when people are talking about the dating conflict
Mm-hmm.
between uh, Gen Z girls and Gen Z boys. They're Yeah, 29 is still a boy and a girl to me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
too old for that. Oh
We're
God,
old. We're old geezers.
I was in class on Monday, and one of the young ladies in my group was like, "Oh, I don't have this," and da 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 da. And I had printed everything out, and I handed her a printed copy, and she goes, "Oh, I love you old people. You always print everything out."
Oh,
I was like, "Thanks for that." Let me scratch my nose here real quick.
okay, thanks, Missy.
Yeah, so there's only one other guy about my age in that class, and then my other class that she made a comment about, does anybody have kids? And I looked around, I'm the only one that raised my hand. So
Oh boy.
that's your next crop of therapists and psychiatrists, right? Or psychologists right there.
Oh goody.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the next one. So I picked these on purpose because
Mhm.
this is the one that's making the rounds. And look at the date on the bottom here, 2020. So we're looking at about 2021, 2022 at the end of that graph. Here's the current graph. And you see that leveling off that we saw in the last graph right there.
Yep.
Men are consistent. We're still at 25%. But women,
But
look, that's a pretty much a 5% drop.
yeah.
That's millions of people right there. And this is why I have hope, because things got after 2020, things just got too ridiculous. Everybody blames Trump for dividing the country.
Yeah.
Everybody blames COVID for this or that. All it did was expose what was already there.
Yeah. Yeah.
What divided the country was the government propaganda after the Smith-Mundt Act was amended so you can propagandize the American citizens, just like we do in every country we want to have a hand in.
Well, and you have on a number of occasions when we've talked about the racial side, we're talking about gender today, but you brought up the graphs
Actually,
of
we're talking about sex. Gender's different, remember.
okay, but the buzzwords in media, the racial buzzwords and the huge jump that was like what 2010 to 2012, I think is when that was. There
Mm-hmm.
was this huge spike in the number of times those key racial buzzwords started appearing in mass media. So again, not new. It was going on for almost a decade, and then this individual came along who was bombastic and polarizing such that it opened a lot of eyes. uh on his side, the people who were cheering him, and on the other side, the Sam Harrises of the world who used to be, these very respected people from both sides who just went insane. And my hope is the reason there's that drop there is because there are more people looking around going, like Williamson and Weinstein that I was listening to this afternoon, was nothing makes any sense. Why is that?
Well, 2020, 2021, basically by that graph, and you see this massive drop.
Mm-hmm.
What also was happening during that time? What would be the deal breaker for women, especially to cause them to be a little bit more based? Things like Leah Thomas.
Mm.
That's the major player here. So also, and this is the monologue that completely cut out because of tech issues that I had to go into, and maybe I can streamline it a little bit more. But you're playing against two natural features of woman. One is mama bear. I'm going to protect my kids, my opportunities, and all of these things. And the other is fitting in. Those are two major things that kind of separate men from women. Women will get that overprotectiveness of the mama bear. That's we got the helicopter parents
Mm-hmm.
from in the 90s from basically one report here and there of a kid getting kidnapped, and
Yeah.
all the mommies stepped in where they have to be right there watching every moment to eliminate every bit of risk. But then you also have the social element, especially for women, because that's their power. They can't. They're not like us. This is another cancelable moment. Even Ronda Rousey wouldn't beat the one of the worst UFC fighters in her weight class for men. Right? It's they have to rely on social uh, status to be a certain way, and we've got one end of the spectrum, especially in academia, where it's uh, if you speak your mind in a based way, you are going to be the outcast.
Mhm.
Even if 13 of the 15 other women in the group agree with you, whoever is guiding the conversation, which is usually the professor or the media or name your position of power, is going to determine that. So you could have 13 people behind you out of 15, but you don't know that. So you're gonna toe the line. But at the same time, now we've got the conflicting force. Wait, you want my kid to do what? Read this book about blowjobs?
Mhm.
Then you get something like Moms for Liberty, right? I wish they were better at expressing themselves and they did their homework before they did an interview. But on that specific
Yeah.
topic, they're
Uh,
right.
on that specific topic, what the Moms for Liberty and people like them need to do is do what the Kim Reynolds, the governor of Iowa, did several years ago when this was really first kicking off and getting into the mainstream media. Is in an interview with an Iowa on TV on Iowa local news, and oh, this is all just nonsense. This is all just silly. She pulled out the book and she read from it, and she was clearly uncomfortable doing so, but it needed to be done. And frankly, on that issue, that's all you need to do. Just okay, you're just talking, in sound bites. Here's the actual evidence. Let me read it to you.
Hmm. Yeah, and so that 5% are probably it's probably even a percentage of who's thinking this at this moment
Mm-hmm.
because of the social pressure. But that's the people who have thought enough about, you know what, Fallon Fox shouldn't be fighting women.
Mm-hmm.
Leah Thomas should not be swimming against women.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I lost a scholar. My kid could lose a scholarship to X university because some dude that has pigtails is sprinting the 100-meter dash, right? So it's this
Let,
is
let
this is the silver lining for me because I don't care about who converts to Republican or Democrat. I actually want those lines to just come together.
mhm. Here's where I'll be a Debbie Downer here for a second though, but I'll try and make it also a call to action. Is go to the next tab, because to me this connects here. Is part of connected to this issue, um, is this uh, self-destructive self-reflection, the idea of self-care, such that Gen Z thinks Dave Ramsey's a moron. That, oh, screw you. I don't care how much debt I have. I have to self-care. I have to take care of me. It doesn't matter how much debt I have so long as I'm happy. And you've completely distorted what happy even means, let alone the fact that the stark reality of, look, even a well-adjusted person who considers themselves happy isn't actually happy all the time. That's impossible. That's constantly escalating your drug use, chasing that high. That's the same exact thing, just, without a needle in your arm. But it's just you keep doing things to chase that high of happy, and life doesn't work that way.
Well, especially when is to stay on topic when it comes to relationships. That person that makes you happy all the time,
Mm,
that's just because you got chemicals going through your brain that are saying, "Oh, new relationship, honeymoon phase, we call it," right? And that only lasts for so long.
mm-hmm,
And if you don't build something substantial in that time, which involves addressing complementary points to each other, which are not always happy, then it's just going to be another year and a half relationship that you're going to keep
Hmm.
cycling through. And if you're
And,
female, then you end up you're 40 and you still don't have a kid, and then you
and
tell people you gave up on it, but you really
exactly.
didn't.
And you
Mm.
are never going to know why, because you've never been exposed, you've never been told, you've never been given an example by your own parents, probably, of what an actual mature, uh, intimate, emotional, and psychological connection means, and the benefit that gives you. You know, that step beyond just the romantic love, that is a true connection and compatibility. And um this is where I was going with this, is go ahead and come out of here, because um I want to bring something up real quick.
Well,
Uh,
let me while you're bringing that up, let me give a really important point on what we were talking about with the dating scene. There are two sayings that are true in physical training, but also, as I'm being more educated on it, it is holding true in psychological training. Practice makes perfect, and use it or lose it.
mm,
And I talked about the girl that, the guy and girl that goes through these dating cycles, but never addresses adversity. Not only does it detrain you on handling adversity, at some point, and this is, I would say just from observation, this is usually around your late 30s, early 40s, and then going into your 50s, you become unable to even think about the process. It's this, I have two clients that are over 60 that are men that they cannot handle anything that is even close to a real committed relationship
mm,
because they're so set in their ways as an individual. Individuality is great, but you have to find a way to be an individual with someone else if you want a family.
mhm,
And, so the mistake on the right is everything is this divine connection. But the mistake on the left is you're so individual, nobody's good enough for you.
mhm.
You gotta find both. You got to
And
find a connection where you can be an individual with another individual and still go forward.
this isn't by any means a unique thought to me, but this is why a lot of people on the right were making the point, you know, 10, 15 years ago during the gay marriage debate of, guys, we've already lost this because we lost heterosexual marriage. Look at the divorce rate. Look at the single parent rate. Look at what we have done to what we on the right, especially the Christian right, call the sanctity of marriage. We sure don't look at it sanctified. We sure don't treat it that way.
Let me give you a positive, but it's actually a negative statistic. The divorce rate has dropped to 40% from 50 something.
Yay.
Now, here's why it's negative. The marriage rate has dropped
Uh-oh.
by like 20%. So basically, the truly devoted are the only ones
Uh-huh.
getting married. So,
And so this connects this. We're still following the same train of thought. This isn't a tangent of why this connects to the point about Gen Z and Dave Ramsey, because what that article is showing is that we are addicted to comfort. We are addicted to how nice our modern lives are, and we
well,
don't.
I'm gonna make that more specific. We're addicted to momentary feeling good.
Yes. And this is, I try not to go down this tangent. This was what I was just listening to Williamson and Weinstein talking about this. There's some fancy sociological or psychological term for this, which is um the the aversion to telling the truth is because in a lot of instances the reward you get for telling the truth does not outweigh the negative consequence of telling the truth.
Oh, I probably lost a what was a lifetime friend not that long ago because of this very conversation. It was the, hey, maybe it's you with
Hmm.
all of these serial, 6-week relationships that's having. And I said specifically, I think you're a victim here. You're a victim of this mentality that the social media has, that it's all about self-care. It's all about, self-love. It's all about any negativity. And that little conversation caused me to be shut out forever. So that actually proved my point
Yeah.
that any negativity, I was trying to be constructive. Maybe I was clumsy about it, that I could take that criticism, but it was the truth. And you could say, no, I don't agree with you, but to completely shut somebody out, you actually just proved me correct.
So your silver lining when we were talking a minute ago was that maybe what we're seeing with this drop here is people noticing the craziness and saying, "Hey, what the heck is going on here?"
Yeah,
My
because of two underlying opposing forces
Mhm,
within us. And that's
mhm.
the silver lining, is because this isn't something that's a trend. The trend is actually what was driving that number up.
Yeah.
But the
And
humanity behind it was actually bringing things back together. And I think if we keep subtly nudging in the right direction, we could actually even nudge that min number up a little bit, because a little bit of liberalism is a great thing. Liberty, universal humanity, those kind of
it's just
ideas.
the idea of thinking differently. We've talked about, I mean,
Yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah.
Haidt's point, and we've talked about that. But so not to just be a couple of old geezers, who like to print out hard copies of things, but and
The sad thing is,
griping.
even on my hard copies, I'm starting to need readers.
So not just to spend the whole time griping at Gen Z, but you're not excused, but there is a reason why you are like this, which is your Gen X parents. Okay. And you were bringing up the example. We have to tiptoe around the tulips, or you know, I have heard that YouTube is now using AI to uh, find keywords and block videos or shadow ban videos. So let's just continue on with the example you were giving of switching from an automatic to a manual transmission. And while that is noticeable and that is probably having an effect on people, how much more of an effect would it have if the Gen X parents were standing up and saying, no, 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 no. My my daughter is not wrestling that person who feels pretty and has a giant bulge. Okay? How many more people would be noticing the craziness and saying, we can have different politics, but the principle, the value here should be the same, and we should be able to stand up and wake up against all the craziness. If All right, so your family is Catholic, right? How much do you know about Catholic saints?
I made it all the way through communion, first confession. I did not get confirmed, so somewhere between 15 and
All right.
16 years
So
old.
this is Catholic.org, because sometimes I actually like the biased sources
I know
because,
I know Saint Anthony is who you pray to when you've lost something, but
okay.
yeah.
Saint Telemachus. All right, why is he a saint? Saint Telemachus, also known as Almachius, was an Eastern ascetic who was stoned to death in Rome when he tried to stop a contest between gladiators in the arena. He entered the stadium while the games were in progress and, going down into the arena, attempted to separate the combatants. The spectators of this cruel pastime were infuriated, and at the instigation of Satan, who delights in blood, they stoned to death this messenger of peace. His death, according to Theodoret, caused Emperor Honorius to abolish gladiatorial contests. His feast day is January the 1st. Uh, and then down here, they give the year of his death as 391. The reason that's important is because that was after Constantine made Christianity no longer illegal and personally converted, and the gladiatorial games were still going on until one person, jumped into the middle of a blood sport and said, "This is wrong." Do you think you're going to be stoned to death or stabbed with a gladius if you stand up and walk into a basketball court and say, "Oh dear"?
I might have to change the meme for this episode just because of you. I like the one I had originally. I
I
don't
bet
know.
he's thinking about other girls. He's thinking about the Roman Empire. Anyway, so I had a
For those that couldn't see it, it was a meme that was basically a Roman guy saying, "I'm going to take you to watch guys get mauled by wild animals," and
there's
it's got
a
Scarlett Johansson's face going, "Oh yay!"
yay.
Yeah.
There's a video going around of what we're talking about here, which is this individual, shall we say, who was quite literally twice the size of everyone else on the court of this high
Oh
school
yeah.
girls basketball game, that had to be forfeited because so many of the girls were injured. Where was Telemachus? Do you think you're going to be stoned if you stand up and say, "What the heck are we doing here? My daughter is not going to play in this game with that going on"? No, you're just too damn comfortable and cowardly. You're too worried about the negative consequences to reputation. Again, yeah, we've spent the whole episode griping about Gen Z, but again, where are the Gen X dads acting like dads? This would be a lot less of a problem
Well,
if
it
that was
sure is
actually
helped
happening.
by the fatherless rate.
Yep.
So you brought up saints and irony of saints. My namesake, my last name is Cyr, Cyr, originally in France, Saint Cyr, named after the quote unquote child martyr who apparently jumped in the way of the boy child martyr jumped in the way of a stoning to prevent somebody from dying. Now here's the irony. How can we have any descendants of a child martyr?
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about the details. So yes, I'm apparently the descendant of someone who had children before they were 10 or something.
Hey,
Maybe that's where the heart conditions come from. I don't know.
dudes.
You know, my ex-wife used to joke all the time. You know who she is. She used to joke. She's like, "Yeah, all the heart conditions in your family. That's probably because y'all were French royalty, so y'all are inbred." I'm like, "You're the one from the South. I should be talking about making inbred jokes about you." Good old fun.
Not wrong. All right.
Shut
Well,
up.
did you have anything else to wrap this up?
Uh, no, because we kind of actually we did it differently this time, but the whole Gen Z ideal of self-care and self-love, and some of that goes to the dating scene because both boys and girls, men and women, males and females, and everything in between are doing it, but for all different reasons, but they're doing the same damn thing. Women in general are going out to be momentarily happy. Men are going out to get laid by these women that are being momentarily happy. The money's all spent for either reason. The money gets spent the same. Some bartender is getting a good tip, and hopefully he or she is not roofing you to help you get robbed, as we've seen. But this whole generation of people are out at Midtown racking up credit card debt with YOLO in their mind. And not only is it killing them financially for the future, there's no long-term relationship prospect in it. And I've seen over and over and over again the females in that thing going, "Oh, why didn't he call me back?" Yeah, because you put out in the car. Not even when you got home. You went out to the car and oh look, he went and found the next girl after that. Or even sometimes vice versa. So it's like, yeah, you're in a situation that yeah is fun, and I can see some merit in it for sometimes some people, but at the same time, if you're talking about future relationships, nah. If you say you're at McIntyre's to find your long-term partner, I'm gonna look at you straight in the eye and be like, you're stupid.
You're either lying or you're not smart.
Yeah, you're either lying or you're not smart.
You're
One of the
lying.
two.
You're lying to me or to yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah. It is. Well, I mean, two can be true at once. You're lying
mm,
to me and yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's just the way of it. But I think it's actually a positive sign that 5% is a huge drop. I mean,
And in a
realistically,
pretty short amount of time too. Yeah.
realistically that's 10% of women because that was 5% of the total population, right?
Hmm.
So it's that's a huge drop. And I think the more I see that line come together, I think the more I have hope for the future because you need
Hmm.
that line to come together.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you don't have children.
Yeah. That's all right. We'll all be grown in tanks and eating bugs soon. It'll be a
Well,
brave new world, and we'll all love it.
let me qualify that statement. You don't have children in loving families.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do have a Pareto distribution in sex life with the men, you may
Yeah.
have a lot of illegitimate children in that. Because realistically, okay, so say you're a woman and you're very progressive, you have a college degree, and you only want guys over 6'2". That guy over 6'2" isn't telling you he's a MAGA person. That guy over 6'2" is telling you what you want to hear.
Mm.
And then you never see them again. But you're pregnant, you know. Uh, good job. Way to be educated by your college degree.
Yep. All right. Well, I was trying to leave us on a. I didn't do a very good job of leaving us on a happy note, but then you brought us down even further. Damn you.
Well, if they learn from it, it's a happy note.
Well, that's true. That's true. All right. Well, I got nothing else.
I would just say we gave common disclaimers. We gave no actual medical advice. If you want to go out and have a hookup culture, make sure you're taking your pill or you find a guy with a vasectomy. Uh, that's your two best choices.
Yep. Yep. And if you want to see how all of this connects to if this particular connects to all the craziness of nothing making sense, go listen to Eric Weinstein on Chris Williamson. It will blow your freaking mind the stuff they talk about. And it gets pretty deep into some interesting subjects, giggity. So go give that a listen as well.
Yep, sounds good. Well, we actually I think went longer than our original episode,
Oops.
even though
So
we
much
were
for
on a time
streamlining.
frame. Yeah, so I got to get ready for my nephews coming in because this is actually a good thing. This is your positive note. So my nephews they're basically not fatherless, but the fathers aren't doing their job. So I get the whole weekend with these kids alone to be the funkle and be that good example because I always try to mix that in with the fun for these guys. Little
Mm-hmm.
lessons. I take them on hikes and we're gonna go the pool is still really cold and I'm gonna have them do a cold plunge with me later. We might do a little fishing in the backyard or something. So that's always a good time when I can get a hold of these kids to spend some time with them. So there's your
All
positive
right.
note.
All right. Well, y'all go do something positive and as well, and we'll see you next time.
All right, later.